जी बनाता है।
वही वहाँ रुकना है।
अच्छा ठीक है।
Nasser was one of my best friends. He was a professor of political theory and law and jurisprudence and a historian, and he was from Pakistan.
अमेरिका नहीं जाती फ्लाइट जो रात को जा
नहीं ये दुबई जा रहा है।
He claimed to have these powers that would help protect me and my family from disease and tragedy. We jokingly called it JUJU, but it was actually more of like a form of Sufi mysticism. At first I was, very skeptical, but a few incidents in our relationship started to convince me that there was something to it. And I always did feel very protected by him. I'm a very anxious person, and he really helped me a lot with that, to manage that. Nasser also was just one of the kindest, dearest people I've ever met. Very honorable person, very honest. Just a very, very good person, so I feel really, really lucky to have known him. I went to Karachi because I really wanted to see his mother, who I hadn't seen in a few years. But also I wanted to sort of come to the source of his power, like he claimed that his power came from her, and in turn from her father, who was buried in Karachi, and in turn this Sufi saint called Hazrat Abdullah Shah Ghazi, who was the patron saint of Karachi and who was buried in a shrine where Nasser's grandfather and grandmother are also buried. So I wanted to see all of that and just sort of experience for myself the source of this protection that I had been benefiting from for many, many years.
And now I'm filming even.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, how are you doing it?
Here you can zoom in and out.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and then the focus, got it.
Then if you touch slightly this one, it's like...
The way I met Nasser originally was I was his upstairs neighbor in Amherst, Massachusetts, when we taught at Amherst College together. The house, I came to believe very quickly, was haunted. I'd never really believed in ghosts, but there were these weird noises, there were these footsteps, there were these lights would come on and go off, and it was very creepy, actually. Nasser was never worried about this, but it was scary. So Nasser's mother one summer wrote all these poems in Urdu on the stairway leading to the attic, and the noise and everything disappeared almost immediately. It started coming back a few months later, but she came for the next summer and she did it again and it was gone. So to me, even though I'm a pretty skeptical, scientific-based person and all that, I was ready to believe. When Nasser died and we were all at his funeral in Boston, in this beautiful cemetery, there was autumn leaves everywhere, and right when the imam was intoning, sending Nasser's soul to heaven, this wind picked up and this tree full of yellow leaves all blew away in this incredible cloud of leaves. And my friend Martha, who was standing next to me, was stammering. She goes, that's his soul. And we all believed it in that moment. That was another big moment in kind of reinforcing the belief in all of this. Nasser would tell me that when he would do JUJU for me, it would actually cost him. He had a hard life. There was a lot of things going on in his life that were very difficult for him. I felt very guilty and weird. I didn't want him to pay a price for it. He did it. He would do it gladly. But I always felt like it wasn't really fair of me to ask him this. It was a little bit one way in that sense. I would offer to do JUJU for him, but we both knew that I didn't have the power that he did. His mother and father would come every summer, so we would spend a lot of time with both of them. So I got to know her very well. But it was always, of course, in the United States. So this was the first time I'd come to see her in her own home. It was the home where Nasser and his brother Omar grew up. I was very excited to see that. kind of to my chagrin, Omar had completely redecorated the place. The effect of it was that it was a beautiful, beautiful house, but it had very little feeling of Nasser having lived there. The rooms that were their bedrooms were completely changed. Nasser's mother, whose name is Sultana, was also kind of upset because she liked it the way it had been. It was all modern and beautiful and perfect, but I was sort of looking for something in those spaces that I don't think I really felt because of that remodeling. In fact, I kind of went snooping around. There was one part of the house that wasn't remodeled, so I went in there to sort of this back room, and I suddenly saw what I thought was like this human shape in this bed, and I was all excited, which is ridiculous. I mean, of course it wasn't him. It just sort of showed that I was very actively looking for something that I wasn't finding, and that sort of, to me, was the overall feeling of the whole trip. I was always looking for him. Like, I felt like I was always looking for him in every space. I wanted to prove or find something, and it just kept not being there. I think I felt like I was going to be very in control of the situation. I had a plan. It was all going to go according to plan. But you know, I'm not a professional filmmaker. I don't know what I'm doing. I just kind of let it go and just sort of tried to make myself as open as possible to whatever Karachi had to teach me. The one thing I kept telling Sultana that I absolutely wanted to do was to see the shrine. The shrine wasn't necessarily a priority for her. For her, it's like she goes there all the time. I was very anxious that I wouldn't see it. It might not occur to her that I'd want to go more than anything else. For a lot of people, there's a kind of casualness to sort of Islam that I found very interesting. Just sort of like these incredible shrines and stuff are just part of ordinary life. You know, in a funny way, I could say that Nasser was my religion, or, you know, or is my religion still, because it's whatever we kind of cooked up between us. So this is something I Xeroxed from Nasser. This is a prayer. This might be his grandfather's writing, and then this is his mother's writing. So it's like three generations or three iterations of prayer. Whoever's in this room gets protected by this. I also Xeroxed this and put it in my children's room. It says, Nasser, this is something in Urdu was written by JUJU. That's a grandfather. Hang this or paste it inside your bedroom cupboard. Everything will be fine. I like having it here. And when I go on airplane rides, this is my own OCD. I kiss it like this before and after to make sure I can kiss it again. Being with Nasser's mother was just really wonderful. I've always just really gotten along with her. She reminds me of Nasser very much. She's 90 years old and lives by herself, well, with 5 servants in Karachi. All right, Mother. So...
Hi, James.
Hi, Mother.
I'm so glad you come to see me, James. You know, from the beginning, when Nasser was alive and you two were together, I appreciated it and I loved it. You're a wonderful person, James. I'm so upset that I lost my son.
Yes.
But you know, this son is here.
Yes.
So I'm glad.
Yes. I tried to film Sultana and it didn't really work out. And I think as I started doing it, I realized that what I was proposing to do was absolutely monstrous. Even though he's gone, that you still have him in some way?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that? You talk to him? I talk to him all the time.
Okay.
Do you ever do that too? Or?
I always, naturally, he's my son.
Yes.
And whenever anybody takes his name, you know, I can't hold my tears. I loved him, and you know how he was with me.
Yeah.
A wonderful son.
Yes.
So caring.
Kind of the theme I had expected was that we would talk about how Nasser was still with us, and you know, have him here, and he's in our heart, whatever. And the minute I opened my mouth to start to talk about this, I realized that it was monstrous to ask a woman whose son had died, you know, quite young, to say that. because for her it was nothing but a loss. And for me too, in a way, you know, like he's not here like in the way that he used to be, you know, he just isn't.
He was a wonderful person.
Yes, yes.
And so are you, James.
Yes.
You are a wonderful person.
And so are you.
But Nasser's passing away was a shock for
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
You know?
I kind of lost my heart to do it.
My husband passed.
Because I'm so close to her and stuff, it just felt very weird.
What a shock
I
to
know.
a person
I know.
who was healthy and happy
Yeah.
and teaching.
Yeah.
And you know, never.
Nasser kind of taught me not to be so afraid. I used to be afraid of everything. And one of the great things that Nasser taught me was not to be afraid of everything.
Yeah.
Like, he was a very brave person.
I dream a lot about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think I dreamt about him last night.
Huh?
Last night I dreamt about him.
Huh?
That's what I mean. I feel his presence a lot.
I was always talking about it.
I realized that this was not the way to do this. This was not the way to talk about this.
What else can I say?
Yeah.
When a mother lost a
Yeah.
brilliant son,
Yeah.
I mean healthy and happy.
Yeah.
That was like the low point of the whole trip in a way. When I started asking his mother questions about him and how he's still with us, you know, those kind of things people say. They say them to make you feel better, like, oh, they're still in our heart or in our memory, blah, blah, blah. To me, like letting go of that way of thinking was actually really a good thing.
You know how he would pray for things and try to help me out all the time?
Always.
And you would do it too, like you would help us. Remember when we thought our house was haunted and you
Yeah.
wrote stuff in Urdu and it worked?
It was funny because she told me a pretty serious counter narrative to a lot of the things that Nasser and I had sort of come to believe together. She kept insisting, for example, that she wasn't magical in any way and that she was just a pious woman. So she would just say prayers and she would follow all the laws of Islam, and that was it. And you don't get anything more than that. It's quite a different story than what Nasser had told me, and I wanted to believe his story and not her story, so it was kind of a challenge for me to be there and be faced with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Shukriya.
It also felt really just wonderful to be there and to be in his actual home and to be with his actual mother. And so whatever she was telling me was really just wonderful to hear, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear originally. So I was just had to be open to what was rather than what I expected. This is the centerpiece of what protects us. And actually a lot of Nasser's friends have one of these. Nasser told me a story that really freaked me out about this good friend of his who ultimately died of leukemia, and he'd given her the amulet to help her too. And she woke up one morning and the amulet was on the other side of the bed from her, had somehow slipped off her neck and was far, far away. And that was a very bad sign. And indeed, she did die. Sultana another thing that she kind of burst my bubble, said, oh, I did that myself. She said, I just wrote some prayers and then covered it with wax and then had it covered in leather. The thread is so worn, I keep trying to replace it. It's like I spent a lot of time making sure, very anxious that this would fall off. He got very, very sick about 8 years before he actually died. We thought he was going to die for sure. And his mother put in to have a prayer said at the Central Mosque of Karachi. And there's like hundreds of thousands of people trying to have their prayer said there because it's very auspicious to do that. And his name was selected from all of the names. And they said a special prayer for him, like the imam, you know, the whole city. And then he recovered completely. For Nasser, it was like she had summoned this kind of special protective power. And for her, it was just lucky that the imam had chosen his name. She just prayed and it had worked out. We would talk about how she would sort of downplay her powers. But I think we both wanted to believe that she was just being humble, that she didn't mean it, that she really was powerful and she knew it. And to tell you the truth, I still feel that a little bit. And then under my bed, I have another JUJU thing. I haven't looked at it in such a long time. The JUJU thing is this. It's like this cloth, and inside, I think it's like the amulet, it's got prayers in it. Very ancient and powerful. This is from Nasser's grandfather. The plastic container that I originally used to hold this sort of moved across this bookshelf and was touching a picture of Nasser's grandfather. We both attributed some significance to that. I never take it out like this. This is a special occasion. I've come to sort of think that the packages that hold it have taken on the magic power too. So sometimes just the plastic is like special. When I fly in airplanes, I always take this. I put this under my kids' beds when they get sick or something too. We went to the shrine. I didn't know that Hazrat Abdullah Shah Ghazi was like this major figure, the Sufi saint from like the Middle Ages. I just thought he was their kind of family's personal saint, but it was really, he's for the whole city. It made me feel a lot of community with the people there around me. I went with Sultana's 2 male servants, Zulfikar and Mustafa, who I came to be very close to. First we went to see his grandparents' grave, which was both very important for me and disappointingly ordinary. I mean, they were just their 2 graves, you know? It's a huge deal for them to be buried there. It's not nothing, but when you see their graves, they're just two ordinary graves. We got to the shrine. It was incredibly exciting to be there. There was like this feeling of excitement that everyone had. There was a million people streaming in and out. Green is the color of Islam, and they had like green neon lights, and the whole thing was really beautifully illuminated. And then we went into the shrine itself, which was this incredible space where the tomb itself is inside this huge room. Everyone is like crying, and even though he's been dead for 1,000 years, and everyone wants to touch the tomb and put flower petals on it, and it was covered with lots of different pieces of cloth, and it's just really intense. The atmosphere in the room was so amazing. Like, people were so moved by this that I just found it very moving myself. And also the importance that this had for me personally, because I'd been like sort of intoning this man's name for a long time. For them, I think, you know, the saint was there, you know, the way they were engaging with that space. For me, I think I felt Nasser's absence more than his presence for sure throughout this whole trip. In a weird way, the climax of the trip wasn't in the shrine, but was actually the first morning when I woke up. And I had this intense feeling of somebody being in the room with me. And at first I didn't know who they were. And then I thought maybe it must be somebody from Pakistan. And then I sort of came to realize it was him. It sounds like a mystical ghosty thing, but it didn't feel that way. It felt very normal, like as if he was literally in the room with me. Of course he wasn't. But it was a really nice feeling. And in that moment, I felt like he was right there. It didn't have to be so mystical and mysterious, actually, to still work. What I felt was his sort of aura of protection, which is really what I needed, you know? It was like when I wasn't looking for it is when it showed up. Exactly. And when I was looking for it, it was gone. It was very elusive. When I left Karachi, I took a picture of the shrine because it's all outlined in green neon and it's really stark, and I could see it from the airplane, and it was incredible. I just felt like the whole city was sort of protected, guarded by this place that was sort of its heart. I mean, I'm so glad I went. That was just one of the most important trips I've been on. You know, it's strange to travel so far, to have something so intimate. I wanted him to teach me to be less afraid of death. A problem in our relationship was that it was kind of one-sided in that sense. Like, he was the brave one. He would show me, you know, he would do things for me. He did show me how to do those things. And he was incredibly brave in all of it. And also, he didn't let the fear of death shadow his life. Like, he really lived, you know? His friendship felt very miraculous to me, but maybe even more so when I realized that he wasn't a miracle maker. Like, he was just this ordinary person, but he managed me to believe in miracles. I often use Nasser as a crutch, and now without that crutch, he can sort of be more just my friend, you know, and he doesn't have to be magical anymore, you know. He doesn't have to hold that burden for me. He can rest. And I can rest in my own way. I can rest as myself. lot of people.